Now, educationists in the Republic of Ghana are still divided over the government's decision to legislate the free senior high school policy, following an announcement by the majority leader, Alexander Afenyomarkin, in the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana yesterday. The move has garnered mixed reactions from various stakeholders. Former rector of JIMPA, that is Professor Stephen Adair, supports the initiative, arguing that formalizing the policy through legislation will provide a comprehensive framework for the government's educational plans. Similarly, the president of the Ghana National Association of Teachers, Reverend Isaac Oduro, is also backing the move, believing that a legal foundation will protect the education system from political influence and interference. Well, on the other side, Professor George Kweku T. Oduro from the University of Cape Coast, the Department for Education Leadership, is opposing the legislation, considering it as misjudged in its current form. Well, the minority in Parliament first was quite strong. The position they declared on it, with ranking member of the Education Committee, Peter Nochukotoi, emphasizing the need to address existing implementation challenges, but it appears the minority is backtracking, as the minority leader in a statement clarified that the NDC has not seen any proposed bill and thus cannot oppose it, stressing the party's historical support for free secondary education and its commitment to improving the program through a consultative approach. Well, tonight we ask the big question: is it much ado about nothing, or it's actually the right time to do what is right when it comes to our education, which has the biggest of its programs being the free education program? I'll be joined in studio by a former Director General of the Ghana Education Service. Okay, he's already here with me, Charles Ahetochega. You're welcome, sir, to UPFront.
Thank you very much.
Also joining us is a Deputy Minister in the course of this conversation at the Education Ministry, Reverend Johnny Timfojo. He should be joining us pretty soon. And Imani Africa's founding president, Franklin Kujo, will also be my guest on this show. But first, let's start with the minority that appears to be oscillating on this matter in Ghana's parliament, which appears to be backtracking on the position. Now, joining me now is a deputy ranking on the Education Committee in Parliament, Dr. Clement Abbas Apak. Doc, you're welcome to UPFront. If you can hear me, Dr. Apak, you're welcome to UPFront.
Yes, thank you, Raymond. It's a pleasure to be with you.
It was quite clear the position of the minority when Peter Nochukotoi, your ranking on the Committee of Education, spoke. Many of us understood him to be saying, this is a waste of everybody's time. Focus on the more important things. But it appears the minority within the last 12 hours is shifting positions. You are now basically saying, oh, we have not seen the bill, so we can't oppose it. Basically shifting to the middle and creating the impression that you are not outrightly opposed to any such bill. What is influencing your change or apparent backtracking of position if you're not shifting positions more?
Well, let me say thank you to you for giving me the opportunity to clarify issues. I have seen and read some information that is attributed to the ranking member. And I have not seen anywhere in that interview where he said that we are opposed to the proposed bill. And let me put on record that the ranking member expressed his opinion. He is not the leader of the minority. And so what the leader of the minority in Parliament has said is in fact the position of the caucus, and I can affirm to you, is also the position of our flag bearer, and is the position of the party. And it is simple. In all of the conversation that we have been a part of with regards to the free senior school policy, we have never said anywhere that the policy was bad. We have always said that the policy is a good policy, but its implementation has thrown up a number of challenges. We have made references to the arrangements with regards to the feeding of the students. And I think that is a matter that everyone agrees with, that it needs to be addressed. We have called attention to the pressure on academic and non-academic infrastructure in our secondary schools. We have raised concerns about the erratic academic calendar itself. So we have always raised matters to do with the implementation of the policy. So if we are told that there is a bill that is being designed to secure the future of the policy, we cannot be opposed to such a bill because we are not opposed to the policy. We think it's a good policy. So that is our position. We are not opposed to a proposed bill to secure the future of Free Senior High School because we are not opposed to the Free Senior High School policy.
What is the threat to the future of Free Senior High School?
Well, you should be asking those who are proposing the bill.
But you are not opposed to it.
We are not opposed to
you
it.
support it.
So if they believe that there is a potential or imminent threat to the continuous survival of the Free Senior High School policy, and therefore they want to come to Parliament to seek our mandate as members of Parliament, representatives of the people, to ensure that the policy continues to thrive. We are all for it. After all, we have stated what we would do to ensure that the policy thrives and blooms under a future NDC government. So we cannot, therefore, be opposed to such a proposed policy.
Chapter 5, Fundamental Human Rights of the 1992 Constitution, actually states in Article 25, 1B, secondary education in its different forms, including technical and vocational education, shall be made generally available and accessible to all by every appropriate means, and in particular by the progressive introduction of free education. Exactly what's ambiguous about this particular provision in the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana?
Well, I understand the provision you read, and I know that provision very much. And that is the reason why we have long argued that Akufo-Addo and Bawumia and the MPP government cannot lay claim to the Free Senior High School policy. It is born of the Constitution, exactly the portion that you have read. And we also have argued, and we still maintain that position, that we started implementing Free Senior High School, although ours was progressive. So
I heard the NDC say they were implementing a progressively free senior high school. As for a full-blown free senior high school, I never heard that coming from those of you in the NDC.
Well, if you want to be technical, even the current variant of it is not full.
Okay.
And I can give you several examples.
Yes, I was
So
waiting
it depends on how you define free.
Okay.
If you were to look at government's own Free Senior High School Secretariat website, they have listed a number of variables. The last time I counted 12, for which government is taking the fees or cost, and that then defines free. So even within the current context, it is not all the variables that are captured by government and the cost borne by government.
Okay.
So it's relative.
So what you're saying is that it is currently not entirely free.
But you and I know that.
Okay, if that is your position, and that is also what the MPP is implementing today, I was asking the question because what is it that a constitutional provision cannot provide that you are convinced a bill, when passed, can provide for when it comes to some protection for this particular policy?
But Raymond, you should be asking this to the proponents of the bill.
Except that now
as we are speaking, we have not even seen the bill, so we don't even know the content. It is a matter of principle.
I agree with you perfectly. I'll also be shocked if you do not know the content of a bill and yet you are not opposed to it.
What we are saying is based on what we have been told. if you were to listen to the majority leader and what he said, which is the basis for this whole conversation, he was very clear and straightforward. He said the reason why this is being done is to make the policy binding on successive governments. That is what we know. We haven't seen a bill. You haven't seen it either. And we are not opposed to making the policy binding on successive government. We believe we are going to be the next government, and we expect to continue the implementation of the policy after we address the challenges that we are going to come and meet. So based on what we have been told, in principle, we are not opposed to it.
Now, this point, because it brings me to a very important point that's been made all this while. I've heard former President John Dramani Mahama. I've heard other leading members of the NDC say, we shall review the free senior high school program to make it fit for purpose. I've heard that consistently. Some, including the President of the Republic of Ghana, has interpreted the review clause introduced in there as an intent to cancel. I'm sure you and I would know that this is the main idea behind the quest to give it some security so that whichever mode or action will be taken on it may not lead to an eventual removal of this policy.
Well, if that is the intent, and if this was a plot or a trap to snare us, it has failed. Because first of all, everyone knows that the definition of review is different from the definition of cancel. I don't know of any dictionary anywhere in this world where review means cancel. They have sought to redefine it to suit their parochial, partisan political interests. We have said time without number that we believe the policy is a good policy. It has implementation challenges. We have pointed some of them out. I think many well-meaning Ghanaians, including parents, agree that matters to do with the feeding of the students clearly leaves a lot to be desired. Many also agree that there is a need for us to increase academic and residential space and to add new secondary schools to reduce the pressure on the current secondary schools. Matters to do with inadequate and lack of furniture are well known. Erratic academic calendar is common knowledge. So these are the issues that we are concerned about, which we have said we are going to address. And we have talked about convening a national stakeholders forum. Whilst we have our own ideas about what we want to do, we believe very strongly, as our flag bearer John Dramani Mahama has said, we believe very strongly that as a national policy, we must convene a national stakeholders forum to assess it. And that is what the review is, to formally assess a policy in terms of its implementation, identify the shortcomings so that you can address them to ensure that the policy delivers on its objectives. That is what we mean by review. And in any case, before I go, this same government, this same President Akufo-Addo and Mahmoud Bawumia and their former and current ministers for education, who have sought to tell Ghanaians that review means cancel, have admitted to the IMF that they will review the free senior high school program to make it effective. That is what they said to the IMF. And it's captured in page 76 of the first review of the bailout that we entered into with the IMF. So even they have used the word review. So I don't think review means cancel. We've gone past that.
Very well, except that when you say that the review content will be determined if and only if you've done a forum and brought together stakeholders in the sector, how about if the stakeholders are of the opinion that the policy itself is not fit for purpose and ought to be removed entirely?
Well, I doubt whether that will be the case, because we all know the role of secondary education. And we all know, as you quoted earlier, that even the Constitution mandates us to work towards making education free, in fact, at every level. And so now, if we say secondary education is free, by and large, we are fulfilling a constitutional obligation.
Doc, you've gone to, forgive me, I need to bring in this one. You are properly educated. You've gone to Simon Fraser University. You have PhD for some of the best schools in the world. Does it sit right in your mind that we are doing a blanket display of freebies in a country that has limited resources, and yet you are also part of a group that says, well, it appears to be having challenges, and the biggest issue is how do we tweak it to get the best result that we want? When we know that this is not the first time a country has done targeting of policy and gotten to results out of that. This is something you're unwilling to confront because it's not a very popular opinion, is it?
You see, Raymond, the reason why we want to bring stakeholders is because we believe that this is a national. The policy is being funded, at least the implementation is being funded by Ghanaians. And so we are obligated to bring stakeholders to sit around the table so that we take a collective look at it. And from what I know, both as a member of parliament and somebody within the educational sector, I doubt whether a stakeholders forum would recommend that we cancel free senior. I doubt.
I guess we'll have to wait until that time. For now, I am grateful to you for your time this evening. Dr. Clement Abbas Apak is Deputy Ranking on the Education Committee in the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana, representing the people of Busa South. Doc, I appreciate your time.
I'm grateful as always.
Coming in studio is a former Director General of the Ghana Education Service. Mr. Aito Chega,
yes,
give me a few minutes and let me bring Franklin Kujo, founding president of Imani Ghana, into this conversation.
Great.
Mr. Kujo, I hope you are doing well this evening.
Well, I certainly could be better, but I'm grateful for life. How are you?
I am keeping well. I'm in studio with the former Director General of the Ghana Education Service.
Yes, a good friend of mine as well. Please say hello to him. Yes,
okay, yes. See him. Brilliant. Now, I want to start from this very controversial point. It requires protection because apparently there is imminent danger from some forces that do not want the good of the free SHS policy. I want to ask, is this protection necessary in the first place?
Well, this obviously sounds like someone's trying hard to protect a legacy for me, which is essentially not a bad idea. But I feel, though, that the whole elevating the conversation to making this free SHS in the bill is a bit far-fetched. Why am I saying this? We all know that the challenges with free SHS is not necessarily because it's allowed many people to access education. It is also the fact that the quality has been subpar. I mean, look, not too long ago, you had the girls prefect of Wesley girls.
Yeah.
Virtually lamenting the fact that there were decrepit situations in which they were sleeping. They were near refugee statuses, and then they were eating food that was, quite frankly, not good. I mean, and you think this is Wesley girls, right? I mean, where you'd have thought that the leads would send their kids to. And so, for me, I don't think the idea of coming up with a bill to make it compulsory is actually the issue. I think we've Ghanaians, by and large, have accepted that some modicum of free is expected. Even with that, people believe strongly, just as you ended with my good friend Apak. Isn't the issue really about means testing and making sure that those who really can afford are sort of taken off the bill and allowed, and so that a lot more people could be served, and also at least improve infrastructure, improve more or less service delivery? I mean, that is the issue at play. And I suspect that this whole idea of trying to elevate this into a bill and then make it a law is actually superfluous, because really, I mean, the Constitution clearly suggests that increasingly education should be free. I would have thought that we should rather be concerned about the qualitative outcomes out of whatever interventions we are making so far. So one, yes, you need to be sure that a lot more people are getting access by preventing, not necessarily preventing, but limiting the number of people who are accessing the free education. Because quite frankly, look, I have a lot of friends who visit the awards, and even the provisions they buy for the awards is quite frankly more than the fees and all of that they pay in a term. But then but now, because it's free and there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot more pain, because these same parents are paying 3-4 times. But now some of them have to house their kids outside of the campus, and it's just a mess. It's just a mess. So I don't think Apenyo Markin is suggesting that we should legislate this mess as well. I suspect what he's trying to say is that, let's make sure it is free for everybody. But it's already really free, and I suspect that we should be interested rather in making sure that a lot more people are able to access it if and when we decide that we're going to do means testing. To allow only those who are in critical need to access them. I mean, that's what I thought should be done.
I should come back to you in a jiffy, but in studio with me is Charles Ayeto Keja. Mr. Cheka, you have implemented education policy before as Director General of the Ghana Education Service. In fact, when this conversation about progressively free, it was during your time, I remember.
Yes.
You were Director General.
Yeah.
Where do you sit on this so-called bill that protects it and gives it protection from possible interference and influence of a sort?
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts on this. I think when Honorable Nujo, what is he?
Yes.
Is he the chairman?
Yes, ranking member
He's the ranking member.
on the education.
I don't know whether he was the one who used the expression much ado about nothing. That is exactly what we are doing.
Really?
Yes, seriously. Because what is the cardinal law in this country? That's the 1992 Constitution. Mm-hmm. In the 1992 Constitution, it has stated what we should do. It didn't say, in fact, I think all the people who went and sat in the Constituent Assembly, did not, and even subsequently, the legal experts who put the legal finesse to the Constitution, did not even consider an idea of anything called a free SHS. But you see how they put it. We should introduce free, because free education is a characteristic of education in this country, starting from Kwame Nkrumah's days. So the Constitution then said, do an educational system, just as you quoted, which is progressively free. I think you put it right nicely. Progressively introducing free education. Yeah. And if you look at other sections of the Constitution, it will tell you, even when you come to the decentralization part, based on condition of funds, granted that we have funds, we will be able to do decentralization effectively. So I think everybody who sat around the constituent table and the legal experts who looked at it were aware of the fact that we have limitations of money in this country. Mm-hmm. So we wouldn't shoot ourselves in the foot by saying that do what we call a free education, as a system. But let's see how we can introduce free in it. And that is just what we are mandated to do. So free education, as has been described now, is another cosmetic definition or extension of the 25 article that you read, which said introduce progressively free. So for me, that is where I sit. Because I have sat down over the past time when I've been free to look at the period when they were paying fees. Now, when they were paying fees, they were not paying fees to the school. They were paying fees for their feeding. Now, the other things that they paid for were all related to your academic work, your books, and all of those things, indicating that, okay, instead of parents running around town before you are going to school, okay, you pay the fees, and then the school will get all of these things for you and ensure that things work out. Okay. So for me, that is where I sit. It's a much ado about nothing.
But, I mean, some protection is what they're asking for now. So that somebody who may not like it, somebody who may think that we are wasting resources on this, may not think that, listen, everybody can pay for their child. So let's get out of this space and let everybody go on their own. In fact, to some people, the mere introduction of the possibility of somebody having to contribute to it defeats the entire free SHS policy. And let me come to you, frankly, on this point. Is it not reasonable to say that any attempt to ask anybody to make any form of contribution to the policy in its current form will deviate from the original intent, which is the child goes to school only with the materials they are bringing from home to go and get everything free in the school? Any contribution of any child along the path defeats the free SHS policy entirely.
Well, that would be foolhardy, actually, because the point really is that even whatever policy you introduce, at some point, you need to sit back and review. That is why the former finance minister, in his own wisdom, suggested that, well, look, I'm able to pay for my ward to be in Achimota School. Why should I be part of the free trade? I don't think so. So I think that would be indeed a very lazy and a bad law. A law that says that everybody is limited to making sure that this is codified to be free forever, even if we become so wealthy that many people are able to afford. That's not fine. That's not how to live a life. Even in its current form, we are saying that it wasn't sensible to say everybody should be on it for free. So we cannot be now trying to rationalize and say that, the purpose of the free SHS would have been defeated, even if a very well-to-do person is allowed to pay or contribute to it. I mean, it doesn't make sense, social science sense. And as we go forward, I think seriously we need to. I thought, to be frank with you, I'm thinking the conversation we should be having now is how do we improve free SHS? Have pathways for those who really, 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 really need. Convert the scholarship secretariat into a proper one so that it doesn't serve just to be at the beck and call of politicians, and then people can benefit. And then of course the state can have resources to do other things like improving education. You see, for me, the way and it is sad we are reducing this whole free SHS conversation to access a loan and everybody is going for free. What is the outcome on what is going to be the impact of education in the next 5 years of all this free SHS thing we are doing? I think that's where we should also be looking at. So if I'm looking for a review or trying to make a law, I'll say that, look, this law for the free SHS, even if I'm saying a significant part of it should be free, must be commensurate with some 5% addition to the GDP of a country. Then we are moving forward. Yeah. But this whole thing, like somebody is coming to take it away, so I have to legislate it. It's a very lazy approach to policy making. I don't think we should be entertaining these things at all. Seriously.
But we are in an election
and the way it's framed, really,
yeah,
it looks to me that it's a very political.
I was about to draw attention to that. We are in an election year, and education policy is top on the agenda too. So it appears that you cannot wish away such a conversation merely because you think that there are more evolved issues that ought to be dealt with. I think the partisan really people in this country, and maybe you two are not in the fray of the politics, but the partisan people in this country see this as a very hot issue, which rarely may not be touched or may not be confronted the way you are confronting it.
But Raymond, we are just setting questions that have not been asked. Because to be frank with you, I don't think the opposition has said, no opposition element I've heard say that they are going to cancel free SHS. Nobody has ever said that. What people are saying is that, we'll ensure that it is done better. We'll review and all. I mean, those are the things that have been said. I think
when I seem to be having a difficulty with reaching Franklin Kujo there, he was making a point about what has been said and what has not been said. I was asking this question because you are not a politician.
No.
This is an election year where a lot is at stake.
Yeah.
Does it have anything to do with this? Let's legislate it into some protective case so that nobody can touch it.
See, Richard, I think that we are being myopic about this whole process.
Okay.
And now, as it seems, we are looking at a particular, the interest of a particular group of people without thinking about the nation as a whole.
Okay.
That is the problem. Okay. The moment you reduce all of these discussions to somebody's legacy, then you are beginning to look at things from a wrong direction. We have a country.
Why so? That's what
yes,
politics.
we have a country which is guided by rules. We say that we have a rule of law in this country. You even read Article 25. Yeah. In it says we have no objection as a people to free education.
Progressive introduction.
No, I'm taking it even away from that one. Yeah. We have no objection. Kwame Nkrumah did it, and we have found it necessary to continue it. We started with basic education, calling it F-cube. Now, we are still committed to the idea of free. So the 25 says, consider doing a progressive free education. So we have been mandated to do that. Now, if for any reason somebody has fast-tracked it into some kind of a full-blown free education, the challenge really is that, are we...
But has it been sustainable?
That's the point.
The free SHS that started in 2017, is the same free SHS we are having today?
In fact, if you ask me, I'll tell you that no part of it has remained the same for me. Everything is not going on the way they should go.
How do you mean by that?
What I mean is that the same constraints in terms of difficulty to get everybody on board in terms of schools, leading to the introduction of what they call the double track or the triple track.
Which was early on. Is it still happening today?
It is still happening today.
A double track?
Double track is still live. Really? Live, yes. Currently. What I don't know. Maybe
in rare cases.
No.
The majority of schools.
In fact, the interesting thing is that there were some selection of schools that ran the normal thing. Yeah. Partly because these were schools that did not have the numbers.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. For most of the parts of secondary education which had numbers, it became very difficult to allow all of them to be in school at the same time.
Except that it was also explained that it allowed for longer contact hours.
No, what is longer contact hours?
That's what they were saying.
That's the point. What is longer contact hours? If your child goes to school for 2 months, and staggers that 2 months, and now your child is somewhere in year 2, and you can't even count the number of the amount of time that he has been in school. Where is the longer contact hours time for? Where is it? That debate...
But I saw the timetable, right? It was pretty obvious the number of days they're saying the kids will be in school.
So many things happen in schools. In the real school situation, a lot of things are taking place. So when you talk about contact hours, I mean, we have not even taken the children themselves and the way they feel about so-called contact hours increase, in their schools. So we have to be careful in looking at this. Full-blown what? Protect free SHS as for what? When we already have it, we already have it. We don't need, and you say if people want to stretch it, or if they want to do an LI, we can always forget an LI, but they can seriously cement it and make it their legacy in the Constitution. They should call a referendum and let Ghanaians vote. No, should we maintain the free education? Then Ghanaians would now do, maybe add it to the election issues that we'll be discussing. Should we maintain the free SHS? All those ones will lead us to entrenching that legacy. But for now, it's a much ado about nothing.
So you're thinking that making it an entrenched clause will be a far more stronger protection?
Far more stronger protection, because then you won't have it easy in terms of removing it from the Constitution.
Okay.
Because there is a referendum that goes with it. But for now, we can always change it. I mean, if you do a law, you put it in the Constitution, do you know the number of things we have changed alone in the education system? This is about our third formal act.
I'll come to that. We will go through the acts and the very changes we made to our education system pretty soon. But frankly, you were talking about answering an unasked question, seeking to propose a solution to a problem which does not exist in the first place. Should government be happy that at least the minority is saying that nobody in the NDC has any intention of cancelling any free SHS? Should government be rest assured that it is enough assurance that there's no threat to the policy at all?
Well, why not? And I suspect that when I said it was political, then probably a trap. I mean, the expectation probably would have been that, NDC will say, look, there's no need for this. And then somehow it is turned into the policy. You see, NDC people don't want you to have free education. And so this is likely to happen. I don't think, and the NDC probably was smarter to say, look, we don't have any problems with this at all. I think we are reducing the conversation to a question of, there's actually no conversation to be had. I mean, the real conversation to be had about free SHS is how to improve it, and not just how to protect the base. The base is what we now agree to, that there are poor people. In fact, today, the Ghana Statistical Service is now saying that there are 43% of Ghanaians are multidimensional poor. That's telling, right? So there's an acknowledgement already that the poor are with us. We live with the poor. Some of us are poor compartmentally and all of that. So we'll need some support along the way. But we cannot just give support whole hook, line, and sinker. And I think that's where the conversation should be. How do we appropriate resources in such a way that people can pay? Even taxes. That's what you heard Baumia talk about flat tax, because he thinks that the taxation system is not fair, it's not human.
Yeah.
So you grade it according to how people can afford. That's how to do policy. So if you can do that for taxation, why can't you apply it sensibly to free education? I want Baumia to answer that question. And I don't think Baumia, as an economist, would suggest that even in a socialist enterprise, everybody else should just live at the expense of the state. It doesn't make sense at all. And as I say, the real questions for me would have been, at the end of Nanado's tenure, what's going to be the qualitative addition of this free SHS thing to the GDP of the country? I mean, that's where I sit. In Ghana, you can go to school for several years, and it's been shown the number of years you go to school is not sometimes it's not really.
Okay.
I've forgotten the data point. It's not even commensurate with the additional value that it adds to the economy. So people are not even productive after going through free SHS. I mean, that's the conversation you should be having, really.
Yes, I get your point. Except that the question I'll be asking is connected to that. What you're bringing on board, part of that question has been answered. We have been given, and they have not extended it to their contribution to the GDP. What they have started with is to show proof or give an indication that these students who went through free senior high school have had some of the best performances we've had in a long while. They insist on it. Yes, that's what they're saying.
Raymond, that's quite elementary. It's just like saying that it's just like the corruption question. Nanado is posting briefly that he spends so much on, he's invested best than everybody. Mm-hmm. But the records are showing that he's a worst performer. But John Mohammed's worst is his best. So it is not how much money you pump into the system.
Corruption Perception Index.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, according to the Corruption Perception Index. So it's not how much. It's not about how many people go through free SHS and pass. But at the end of the day, are these productive? Because Remo, you and I know that somebody who is trained properly in some other parts of our world, in fact, are more productive to the economy than you and I here, right? Mm-hmm. If you've not done some proper somewhere, we'll not be as productive as we see. Mm-hmm. The current content of the free SHS education system and the way it is being run, like in a refugee status, people eating bad food, stunted food, would degrade the economy in the next 4, 5, 6 years. That's the way I do my analysis. I'm not interested in, I mean, you got like, there's no value addition to the economy. You know why Baumia is now suggesting that you're going to train 1 million people, open university? Because there's no connection between what is being taught, this whole massive thing on free SHS. In fact, so the problem really is that, Raymond, is that instead of focusing on qualitative outcomes, we are focusing on mass employment, mass graduation.
Is that really the problem?
That is the problem.
I'll come back to you, frankly, but is that really the problem?
That is the problem. You know, and
we've always had difficulties with quality in our senior high school.
But the point is, it's even worse at this time when we really have not had the opportunity to seriously subject the numbers. You know, but because if you look at it, we have the numbers that have been determined to have been admitted at free SHS coming from the free SHS Secretariat. Now you have the other numbers which are actually taking places in the schools. So you have the per capita number and the so-called release numbers. Now, I have looked at it in terms of how many people are in SHS, and I'm taking how many people sat for the exams, how many people have actually come to the school, and then how many were released at it. You will see variances all along the line. So the number when they say they speak out like 1 million people in free SHS, when you go to the numbers, you don't have it. Because what is 1 million people in SHS? Is 1 million people out? No. 1 million people in SHS. As at SHS 3, do we still have 1 million? We don't. We don't. So
were you expecting 1 million?
No, but I'm not expecting 1 million. Good,
like
but that's the exact point I'm making. So you see, then we don't have the 1 million people have been admitted into secondary school. No, we don't.
Okay.
But we have the actual number who are in school, those who are actually in school, who have taken their enrollment and are in school and have finished. That is the number that we have. But we don't talk about that. We talk about the number that we actually posted from the free SHS to the secondary schools, and we know that not all of them would even go.
In the schools.
Yeah. So this confusion has been maintained all the while, and laced with what Franklin is talking about, Bebre Nekoye. It makes no sense. It's all part of the propaganda to hoax up the whole free SHS idea. But in reality, you don't have those numbers in the free SHS. So there is a need to...
But how is that a question of quality? How is this a question of quality?
Good. So in between that, you begin to measure other things that will encourage some children to stay in. Okay. Now, under the current system, you still have an arrangement where students actually pretend to be admitted in a school, drop out, and then go and take their examination in some of these quick mail examination more practice areas, where they know that even though they have not attended school properly, they, at the end of the day, will get a good result coming out of it. So those are the ways you begin to measure and do some attendance arrangement analysis, and then you see the quality issues that are actually lacking, especially when you begin to look at how many textbooks are actually even in place in schools, and how many of the students actually have textbooks.
I mean, what's the problem with textbooks?
I mean, if you are doing literature, and the school does not provide you with literature books, but you have to go back home and tell your father to go and buy. Now, I had the opportunity of asking somebody from a certain school, and the person said, no, we didn't have the books.
When you were Director General, were you providing books to all schools?
Oh, they were providing books to all schools. In fact, textbooks were, I landed on literature. Mm-hmm. When you take literature books, you really have literature books in school. You have it in school. So, I mean, it's not like we are saying, when I was there, no. We have a tradition of providing that and providing additional books that students should normally need. I continue to buy economics books even after, even when I was in Form 5, to just add to my learning. And students will buy books anyway. So those are the kinds of things that really happen. I will give you an example. I mean, even as a way of laying a foundation for literature for secondary school, at the JHS, we introduced the book called The Cockcrow, and it was virtually free. We provided every single person in JHS with a book called Cockcrow, which they could read. For those who bought them for their own, they could take them home. Those who didn't buy them, they had to leave it in the school. So they had the books. They could take it home and use and bring back, and they have it. So those are the quality issues that one can begin to compare when you begin to look at the secondary.
Even though Franklin may deem that not to be a strong point, they say that they pass better than students who wrote under you. Oh. So in the interim, they appear to be brighter, isn't it?
Well, if that is the only measurement and of free SHS, then we will allow it to be. But we know that we measured the outcomes at the university level.
As in whether or not they are still
passing. As in whether they are still passing their things.
I mean, how is that important? Because
no, it's important because if somebody passes very well and enters the university, then it should be possible for that
person to progress
to the final year. Some are failing and leaving out from the universities and all of that. So
not making it possible for them to progress.
Yes.
I need to start taking final words from you.
Yeah.
Frankly, you've asked us to concentrate on the quality issues. For you, what are the key quality issues that ought to be brought to the table right now? And if government changes its mind, should government then organize a national forum on the review of the policy so that there appears to be consensus before moving forward?
Raymond, as we get into this election, and I like the conversations you have on the morning show all the time, we need to start quantifying, measuring whatever any politician says they want to do. You know why? Because if it's not going to move the needle a little bit more, as in adding value to our lives, then let's not even have that conversation at all, right? So in the same vein, if this free SHS thing that my good friend Nadu and everybody is now saying, Sadia, you are here, if it is not going to add value to the economy, as in we always keep talking, or there's a disconnect between industry and academia, this is the base. If you are getting this type of education, and there's not really proper education, because you go, you're thinking about food, the food is not good, you're thinking about the books, you're thinking about how to sleep. What is this, right? If you are internally displaced, maybe fine, but look, let's be serious. I think for me, the quality conversations is how much, since free education started, we probably have to do an analysis of that. What has been the impact on the country's GDP? As in, if you look at the graduates who have come out, what skills have they possessed? How have we measured productivity in such a way that we can link it directly to when free SHS was made free the way it is being done right now? I can't guess. I'm not going to say anything, but I'll be very surprised to hear that it has improved the qualitative, the productive forces of this economy. And when I submit to you, and we'll be having these conversations, we'll come to your studios, we'll be measuring many of these high-level, sloganeering stuff that people make, and then measure it against what is expected to add value to the economy. Otherwise, Raymond, let's not even have that conversation at all. All these people going around promising 1 million this, 1 million that, is of no effect. And that's the conversation you and I and the team need to be having. If it's not going to add value to the economy, please, let's not even have it.
And I'm grateful to you for your time this evening, founding president of Imani Africa, Franklin Cudjoe, for joining us. I'll leave the last words to you. So where do we go from here? How do we assure people that there's no cancellation in their offering and still have a quality conversation on a program that's supposed to shape our young people for the future? A future that some are advancing really, really well elsewhere.
Well, I would put it down to maybe 2 or 3 dimensions. Mm-hmm. And my first point is the Constitution. The Constitution already mandates us to have free education. Okay. We will have it, whether progressive or free for all. We will have the free education. What we need to do now is to look at the qualitative dimensions of it and make sure that we have a free education which has real learning taking place in schools and then bouncing up to the tertiary levels. Because it is only under those circumstances that we can ensure that we can keep what we call the free SHS, at a point where we can flow with it as a people. And as Franklin has said, bring the value to the economy that we want to build, and therefore the Ghana that we want.
I get you. That's the second one. Or the third one you just referenced in there.
No, I said two of them.
Two of them that's supposed to be.
The Constitution and the quality dimensions.
Well,
essentially that.
It appears to be a very straightforward conversation.
Yeah.
But it also appears to be that this is an election year and it will not go anywhere, and a bill of that sort is likely to be introduced. Will you be shocked by the introduction of it?
Well, I won't be shocked by the introduction of it, but I wonder whether it will make any impact.
Okay.
Because I don't know exactly what they are going to put into the bill. And I noted somewhere before the start that the devil is in the detail, which is the bill that will determine whether, even as the minority says, whether they will support it or not. The details of what is in the bill is what will drive the discussions going forward in terms of protecting President Nana Addo Dankwa's legacy of the free SHS. But we are mandated to implement a free SHS, and it will be done, I believe, under the NDC.
Now, Charles Aheto Chega
Yeah.
is a former Director General of the Ghana Education Service. And you also heard from Franklin Kujo. We're expecting to have in this conversation a Deputy Minister for Education. But we can thank you for joining us in today's conversation. We also appreciate that Clement Apak joined us early on. I'm so grateful for you joining us in studio. Thanks to you out there for joining today's edition of Our Front.